All right, welcome to another opponent preview, and we were pleased to be joined by Steven Sipple, who covers the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And Steven, you've been doing this for quite a while, almost 30
Mhm.
years. We were just talking about coming in
Yeah.
before we started here, but senior writer for Husker Online and On3 Sports, and you've also got a morning radio show on 93.7 The Ticket. And so you've been busy and getting ready for this season. And how's your off season going?
Yeah, it's really, Brian, you cover it. You're on the beat. June's busy
Yeah,
in college football now. May is kind of a scramble to keep your site rolling. So it's been busy. I mean, and then you got Big 12 media days coming up, right?
yeah. Next week, I'll be in Vegas.
Next week. That's amazing. So you got Big 12 media days. I got Big 10 media days on the 23rd. So no, not much vacation is what I'm telling you.
Yeah, and I think the Buffs are going to start practices in late July, later this
Mhm.
month. And so, because they've got an early game, August 29th. So, we don't know for sure, but I think they're going to start practices around, July 30th. And so, yeah, the summer's almost over. And, it used to be when we covered this, Stephen, that, you had, spring ball's over and, pretty much, all right, we'll see you in August, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now it's kind of like, nope.
No,
You
it's
know,
not
I,
that.
I don't know about you, but I get asked all the time, like, well, what do you cover when it's not football season? I'm like, football. Because there's just a different part of football season that's going on, right?
Yep, that's exactly right. I used to take five, I worked at the Lincoln Journal Star for quarter century or more. And yeah, I remember distinctly taking 5 weeks off straight. I
Yeah.
mean, and then coming back and the sports editor saying, I appreciate you're here. You don't really have to do much if you don't want.
Yeah.
Because I was a football writer. But that, no, Brian, as you know, it's those days are over.
Yeah, and it's funny because you were mentioning May. You kind of scramble, not around here because May was like, let's, that's the next transfer portal window for Colorado, and so, I guess it depends on who you cover when the downtimes are, but there's certainly a lot of things going on all year, and as far as this game, Colorado at Nebraska, week two. I don't know about you. I mean, we talked about it last year when Nebraska came to Boulder. Buff fans are excited about this game. They're always excited to play Nebraska. I think they'd rather every single one be in Folsom, but I think that Buff fans are excited about this one. How do Husker fans feel about this game?
Super excited. I mean, it is, and Brian, I'll always remember that trip last year to Folsom because of how I mean that it was such an energy charged environment. I'm
Yeah,
not even just talking about the stadium. I'm talking about walking to the stadium, but then getting there, and then the stadium itself in that game was loud. And your listeners, it's established now. I've been covering football since the dawn of time, and there are a few atmospheres that I can remember matching that. And that was a day game. It was like a day game. I mean, so yeah. And now, so this year, oh yeah, fans here are jacked up. It'll
yeah,
be Brian. I mean, that what you hear a lot here is in 2014, Miami came here. So Nebraska and Miami have a background,
yeah.
and it was supercharged. It was a night game, and it was crazy. And I expect it to be like that, or probably even more crazier for Colorado.
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned the atmosphere being so good last year. To me, I've covered two CU Nebraska games in Lincoln, and to me, that's one of the best atmospheres I've ever been in is Husker Stadium. Or I guess it's Memorial Stadium, right?
Yeah, Memorial
Memorial
Stadium.
Stadium. But I love the atmosphere there, and I grew up in Colorado, so we're conditioned to hate Nebraska. And
Yeah.
as a writer, I've lost a lot of the fandom, so I don't really have all that. But we're not conditioned to say complimentary things about Nebraska, but I will say that's one of the best environments that I've covered a game in is that stadium. And those fans, they love their Huskers. And when Colorado was there, it's fantastic. It was 2010 and also 2018, and those were both you know they weren't, well, one Nebraska won 2010, Colorado won 2018. But I love the atmosphere there. It's gonna be a fun game, I know that. But and really, both teams are trying to establish themselves still, right? We were talking before we got on here about, you got the Ohio States, the Michigans that, they're going for or just won a national title. And that's where Colorado and Nebraska used to be. And now it's just, let's get to a bowl game.
Right. Oh, I think, yeah, I think both programs are in a similar position, Nebraska and Colorado. And really, it's sort of defined by that,
Yeah.
that being the end all for both. Yeah, it's definitely for Nebraska getting. Nebraska hasn't been to a bowl game since the Music City Bowl in 2016. They lost to Tennessee. Um, so yeah, 2016. That's been that long
Yeah.
that Nebraska hasn't been to a bowl. So that, and they feel like they have a team that's capable of that. They're 5-7 last year, and we're minus 17 in the turnover category.
Yeah.
So they feel like they've upgraded at quarterback, and they should get to a bowl.
Yeah. And in Colorado, they were at the Alamo Bowl in 2016, went back to the Alamo Bowl in 2020. But a lot of people kind of like, well, yeah, it was 2020 though. That was the pandemic year where they only played. I mean, the bowl game was game number 6, and
Mhm.
so, some people count it, some people don't. They've really only been, they haven't been to a bowl game in a real season since 2016. So yeah, this is a big
Dang.
one for both.
Yeah.
And obviously, both programs have a second year coach, a second year high profile coach. Dion may be more high profile than Matt Rule, but both of them are still trying to establish that thing. And I think it's gonna be a fun game. And so let's talk about the Huskers, and tell fans what to expect out of this team. Last year, the Nebraska team that came to Boulder, they didn't play a very good football game. Obviously, I mean, they just couldn't hold on to the football. Colorado took advantage, and it turned into a rout. Um,
Mhm.
I don't expect that same thing this year. Um, where is Nebraska right now offensively? Let's start there.
Well, I mean, last year in Boulder, you mentioned Nebraska melted down because of turnovers. They
Yeah,
started Jeff Sims at quarterback.
they couldn't snap
He,
the ball.
yeah, yeah,
That was the biggest problem.
that was yeah, that was a large part of the problem. Turnovers, they melted down because of turnovers. Lost 36-14. Jeff Sims is no longer on the team. He's transferred um, to Arizona State, and now Matt Rule has not named the starting quarterback. It's pretty much a foregone conclusion. However, there will be Dylan Raiola,
Mhm.
a true freshman, but true freshman, but a very, I mean, I think he'll be very solid. I mean, if solid at the I mean, I think he could be really good. Now, it's really hard as a true freshman, but he's 6'3", 220, understands the game at a high level. His dad played 14 years in the NFL. Dylan is very mature for a true freshman. And they won't come on. I mean, at quarterback last year, Brian, 3 quarterbacks combined for 10 touchdown passes with 16 picks. I mean,
Yeah.
that's it's just hard to do anything with that.
Yeah.
They'll be much better in that regard. And what Matt Rule talks about is just being able to complete 3rd and 5s, keep moving the chains, just pretty simple 3rd down passes, be able to execute. So I think on offense, oh, and here's the big thing. The biggest change that you'll notice beyond quarterback is they brought in 2 transfer receivers, Jamal Banks from Wake Forest and Isaiah
Mhm.
Nayor from Wyoming. Banks was a second team all ACC guy, big guy, 6'4", 210, 215. Nayor's another big guy, more of a blazer than Banks. But he caught 12 touchdown passes at Wyoming in one season, 2021. Now,
Yeah.
then went to Texas and disappeared, and now is materialized at Nebraska. Good receiving core. Those two, plus the young guys that they had to bring along quickly last year. It is a legit now Big Ten receiving core. It's not Ohio State,
Yeah.
but it's legit. It's legit.
Yeah. And you know, I figure Rayola will be better than what Nebraska had, but
Mhm.
as a true freshman, like you mentioned, you never know with those true freshmen.
Right.
This will be just game number 2 for him, and as long as he starts, I think you and I are both assuming he starts.
Yeah.
But this should be game number 2, his first big game.
Mhm.
will be Colorado. And so, is that something that I don't want to say scary, but
Yeah.
is that something that Nebraska looks at and says there's even if he's a starter, there's going to be some adjustment period to where maybe they're not as good early on and as they might be later in the season.
Brian, you can say scary. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a lot for a young guy in that environment. You understand. You saw games in 2010 and 2018 in the daytime.
Yeah,
Memorial Stadium is like most stadiums. It's much different at night, much different. That game is going to be, it's so highly anticipated. Yeah, I mean, I don't think scary is a bad word. Of course, I wonder how he'll handle that. He's at the end of the
yeah,
day, he is still a young guy.
yeah,
You cover college football, and one of the most interesting things about covering college football is you cover guys who come in as 18-year-olds, and they're boys. I mean, they
yeah.
are.
Hmm.
But you wouldn't call Shador Sanders a boy at this point. He's a grown man,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
And so as they evolve, it's interesting because they become grown men right in front of your eyes. Yeah, you'd prefer to have a grown man at quarterback in that environment. You
Yeah.
would.
Hmm.
It's no, I do wonder. For instance, he talked about Brian in the spring game. Spring game. I mean, now there's a lot of people there. There's 50,000 plus here, but he says he sort of blacked out right before the first series. He was
Yeah.
nervous.
Yeah.
So that got my attention. Like, okay, well, it's going to get tougher, so we'll see how that looks.
I remember a coach, an assistant coach of Colorado years ago, preseason. I'm asking, well, these freshmen you have, how do you think they're going to do? Like, what do you think they're? And he goes, I have no idea. He
I
goes,
know.
none of us know until you get out there. He goes, they might really thrive being under the lights, and they might just cower and they're not ready for it. And so, and that's with some really good players that he had. And so, yeah, you just never know. But I think the bigger picture for Nebraska is that they've got a five-star quarterback. They've got somebody that looks like can be the guy. And
Mhm.
for a while, looks like he can be a guy that can help turn this program around and get Nebraska back, right?
Brian, yeah, he's got serious arm talent. I
Yeah.
mean, serious. And you saw if Colorado fans would just look at the spring game highlights, just go to YouTube and look at some of the throws he made in the
Hmm.
spring game. And as I mentioned, he's big. He's 6'3", 220. He's a big kid. He thinks the game really well. I mean, he does. He changes protections. I mean, some of the Nebraska defensive coaches have talked about that sort of more behind the scenes type talk, but like we're sort of flabbergasted that a freshman was up there changing protection.
Yeah.
Well, one of the coaches I talked to, I said, man, he's got to avoid injury. He's not all that mobile. But he said, he's really good about if he feels uncomfortable with a call at the line of scrimmage, if he feels vulnerable, he gets out of it at the
Yeah.
line of scrimmage. He's smart. I mean, he makes no bones about it. He wants to be an NFL quarterback, and he knows it's much more than just arm talent.
Yeah. Well, he's gonna be fun to watch, and I'm looking forward to seeing him. And he is the key to that offense. They were not very good offensively last year. I don't remember where they ranked, but it was about 18 points a game.
Yeah, it
Um,
was
you know,
terrible. Yeah, it was like, yeah, they're
yeah,
terrible.
they struggle. On the flip side, defensively, they were really good last year, and that's what kept them in a lot of games. And there's some players back from that unit. How does that side of the ball look for you?
Really good. I mean, they were top 10 defense last year.
Hmm.
And now I don't mind saying this, but they played in a lousy division and they
Yeah.
played some bad offenses. And you have to acknowledge that. But what I always tell people around here, Brian, is I know what I saw. I'm not just staring at a stat sheet. They're good. I mean,
Yeah.
they really, I mean, what you saw and you haven't seen a lot of at Nebraska in recent years is a lot of helmets at the ball. They
Hmm.
really rallied to the ball. They got guys to the ball carrier consistently, not just sporadically.
Yeah.
And they have a lot back. They do have a lot of experience. They're good up front. That's the key. They got Ty Robinson, veteran, big kid, 6'6", I don't know, 290. Nash Hutmacher, nose tackle, big, he's a typical nose tackle. Then a kid named Jamari Butler who gets overlooked a little bit, but he's maybe their best player, and
Yeah.
they're good. So no, they're good up front. They're decent on the second level, and I think the third level is really good, although they have a corner spot that's they got to figure out.
Yeah, and that's what's going to keep him in games. It kept him in games last year,
Uh-huh.
and last year I saw Matt Rule in an interview recently. He was talking about they were 5-3 at one point, and thinking, all right, just win one more, you're in that bowl game, and they couldn't
Right.
get that last win. But it was, I think, three losses by a field goal. One was in overtime by a touchdown. Just couldn't get over that hump, and the defense kept him in there. But he
Mhm.
mentioned that was disappointing, but at the same time that's fuel for us. Do you feel like this team is ready to turn some of those types of games into wins? That you see that a lot, that like a team that loses a bunch of close games one year can kind of flip those the next year. Is Nebraska in that position?
I mean, I think so, but we've been having this, Brian. We've been having that discussion here for a few years. I
Yeah,
mean,
it does seem like that.
yeah, the close loss discussion sort of defined the Scott Frost era.
Right. Hmm.
So I don't like to go too far, and I don't think Nebraska fans want to hear me go too far down the road of, yeah, I think they got it. I think they nailed it down. Now, I don't know. It's you've seen so much of it, but like I said, they're not going to be minus 17 in turnovers again.
Yeah.
They're going to get better quarterback play. We haven't mentioned the offensive line, but they're veteran. There's a veteran offensive line. It should be at least good.
Mhm.
They should be at least good up front on offense. So yeah, all signs point to it. Plus the schedule is pretty manageable. So I don't. I think they can solve that. But I'm glad you asked. There's one thing I need to mention, and I'm glad I remembered this. They're pretty suspect at both punter and place kicker. I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't get mentioned around here too much. New long snapper, place kicker that struggled last year, including a miss or two in Boulder, if you remember.
Right.
Didn't he miss one or two in Boulder, Tristan
I believe
Albano? Yeah,
so.
he
Yeah.
did. Yeah, he did. Absolutely did. And Brian Buschini's a veteran punter who's had some great moments, but struggled last year.
Hmm.
So I don't know. There's enough that kind of gnaws at you that makes you wonder: are they going to be okay, or is it just going to be sneaking into a bowl game? Or are they really gonna be emphatic in kind of turning the corner? I don't know yet.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned the schedule. They do go to Ohio State, which
Mhm.
that's a brutal one. But beyond that, it's like you said, it's manageable. I mean,
Real manageable.
you go to USC, this might be the year to go to USC, because they got a transition year after losing Caleb Williams. So the schedule's manageable. But I know Buff fans they'll continue paying attention to Nebraska, after they leave Lincoln. But that's the big one right now is the one in Lincoln, Colorado, heading out there. And but what are you expecting out of this Nebraska team? Do you think you'll be covering a bowl game?
Yeah, I do. Is it like the question is, will they sneak into a bowl game or
Hmm.
will they be emphatic about turning this corner? That's the question. And it sounds like a column actually, now that I'm talking about it. I don't that's what I wonder about. Um, I do think they will though. They were
Yeah,
so close last year and they have so much back. And I think the big thing, in addition to Rayola, is those receivers I talked about. They went out and got two really good receivers. And then I should also mention, so they have a good receiving core, plus their tight ends are good. I
yeah,
think, Brian, they might have a all Big Ten type tight end in Thomas Fedoni. He had 25 catches last year. He's come back from two serious knee injuries, and it looks like he's got him. They're behind him now, and he's a
yeah,
load. He's really good. I mean, he's a big 6'6", 255-pound tight end, and he's really athletic. And then they brought in a kid named, one thing I can be of value to your Buffs fans. Remember the name Carter Nelson. They brought in a true freshman who's kind of a hybrid tight end. And I don't know exactly how they'll use him, probably split him out like a hybrid tight end.
yeah.
And he's awesomely talented. I mean,
Hmm.
he's a guy definitely to watch. So what I'm telling you is they do have some pieces for Rayola to throw to, a lot of
Yeah.
them.
Well, it's going to be interesting because I've been covering Colorado since 2010, so I've seen I think
210.
four Colorado Nebraska games at this point, but none of them have been between two good teams. You know, Colorado wasn't any good in 2010. I don't remember Nebraska if they were good in 2010.
210, 2010. They were good. I
They were
mean,
good. Okay. I think they
yeah,
were a bowl team.
yeah, they were. They were
Colorado
nine
was
wins.
Colorado was not. 2018-19, Colorado was not. Nebraska was not.
Mhm.
Last year, neither team was a bowl team. And so I think this is going to be the first time in a long time that you've got two good teams going
Two,
against each other. And I think college football is better when Colorado and Nebraska are good. And I think that this is a tone setting game a little bit for both teams. I think both are
absolutely.
in a bowl game, win or lose. But the answer of whether the Nebraska gets there emphatically or sneaks in could be determined whether they win this game or not. This is a big one. Maybe same with Colorado, but I think that this is the first time in a long time you're going to have two good teams on the field when you have Colorado and Nebraska. I think that's going to make it fun.
Brian, we're kind of old guys and we've seen a lot, but these are the
Mm.
kind of games that keep you going.
Yeah,
It'll be fun. I'm telling you, you'll have fun here. It'll be a fun night for us. It'll be, I mean, like I'd say the nation will be watching this game, you
yeah.
know, and
It'll
that's
be a lot
fun.
of fun. Yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
fun. And it's I think it's been well, last year they probably did because of Deion Sanders.
Yeah.
But it's been a while since people have really been interested in a Colorado Nebraska game. We remember for years it was, right after Thanksgiving. But this one's gonna be fun and I look forward to it and I look forward to seeing you in Lincoln. And we did this last year. I appreciate you joining me again, Stephen.
I'll do it anytime. And it's good talking about it. It's a fun discussion, Brian.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun, and I'll see you in Lincoln here. It's coming up quick. We talked about our summer is kind of fading. It's going to be here quick, so I'll see you in a few weeks, I guess.
All right. All right. Enjoy yourself, Brian.